First Republic is no more. Regulators seized the embattled lender overnight and sold it to JPMorgan Chase, what is now America's second biggest bank failure after the 2008 collapse of Washington Mutual means that 84 bank branches that closed as First Republic locations on Friday opened up today as Chase branches. Hundreds of Texas officers are looking for the gunman accused of killing 5 people after a dispute between neighbors. The suspect went on a rampage with an AR-15 style gun. This happened on Friday at his neighbor's home after being asked to stop shooting in his yard while their baby slept. The youngest killed was a 9-year-old boy. There were 10 people, all family, inside the house, and luckily 5 survived. This is the latest in a series of recent retaliatory shootings. The 38-year-old suspect has been on the run for several days now, and there's actually an $80,000 reward out for anyone that has information that will help law enforcement apprehend this shooter who's been described as armed and dangerous. Yesterday, Senator Tim Scott, a Republican senator from South Carolina, said he will make a major announcement in Charleston, South Carolina, on May 22nd. Now, this comes weeks after he launched an exploratory committee for a presidential bid. Scott, the first Black senator from South Carolina and the only Black Republican senator, could become the second GOP candidate from the state in the 2024 race. Remember, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, also from South Carolina, announced her bid for president last month. A state representative in Montana asked a court on Monday to allow her to return to the House floor for the rest of the state's legislative session, arguing that her First Amendment rights had been violated after an escalating standoff over her remarks on transgender issues. Representative Zoe Zephyr, a Democrat from Missoula, was barred last week from participating in deliberations in the House chamber after she made an impassioned comment about opposing a ban on hormone treatments and surgical care for transgender minors. The bill, which passed, has since been signed by the governor of Montana, who happens to be a Republican. Well, the Met Gala, the fashion world's annual extravaganza, is happening tonight. A star-studded event in New York that raises money for the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Costume Institute. It's organized each year by Vogue editor-in-chief Anna Wintour, and this year's theme is based on an individual, designer Karl Lagerfeld, rather than a concept, which is what's usually the theme. Lagerfeld died in 2019 and is known for transforming the brand Chanel. We'll be watching to see what the celebrities are wearing and asking, why is America so fascinated with celebrity events? Comedian and Daily Host correspondent Roy Wood hosted Saturday night's White House correspondent dinner. But Roy wasn't the only one with jokes. Yes, Joe Biden took to the mic with his own brand of humor and landed this one. This is what Joe Biden had to say. It's great. The cable news networks are here tonight. MSNBC, owned by NBC Universal. Fox News, owned by Dominion Voting Systems, Biden said. He went on to say, last year, your favorite Fox News reporters were able to attend because they were fully vaccinated and boosted. This year, with that $787 million settlement, they're here because they couldn't say no to a free meal. I hope you're laughing because it did draw a big laugh from the audience. We're going to talk more about the correspondents' dinner and what Joe Biden had to say. This is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In my first hour, I'm joined by 2 brilliant contributors, Gustavo Arellano. Get those vowels in the right place. Arellano, he's a columnist for the Los Angeles Times, and Chris Scott, a Democratic strategist, is here to help us break down today's trending news. And in our second hour, it's all about the law and big impact trials. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump's legal team's motion for a mistrial in the defamation and sexual assault trial involving accuser E. Jean Carroll. She withstood grueling hours of cross-examination last week by Trump's attorney, who now says the judge is being unfair to Donald Trump. I'm going to talk to one of the nation's leading civil rights attorneys and litigators about what this trial means and what a verdict in favor of E. Jean Carroll will mean for the Me Too movement and the 2024 election. But before I bring on my guest, here's what I'm thinking about in real time. I'm asking myself and asking all of you, what's up when a country, yes, I do mean a country, demands that a streaming site cancel a show because of the race, i.e. the skin color of its cast? That sounds really strange, right? But this is real news happening in real time. Egypt has accused Netflix of misrepresenting history by casting a Black woman to play Cleopatra, its most famous historical figure, in a new docuseries called Queen Cleopatra. This docuseries is set to be released on May 10th and features African-American actress. She's actually of mixed race, Adele James. She is cast to play Cleopatra, the lead role in this docuseries. Now, the streaming giant Netflix says this is a nod to the centuries-long conversation about the ruler's race, but which officials in Cairo have dismissed as blatant historical fallacy. Egypt's Ministry of Tourism argued that the documentary nature of this film or of this feature requires those in charge of its production to investigate accuracy and rely on historical and scientific facts. Now, he goes on to say coins and statues from the time show a light-skinned woman in keeping with Cleopatra's Macedonian Greek ancestry. Now, this is what the Egypt's Ministry of Tourism is saying. He actually used the word light skin. Well, as you can imagine, the filmmaker and series director, Tina Haravi, she had a few choice words about the races and colorism that she has received for casting a Black actor as Queen Cleopatra. A decision she made, she said, following decades of academic discourse about Cleopatra's roots. And she asked this question: why shouldn't Cleopatra be a melanated sister? And why do some people need Cleopatra to be white? Her proximity to whiteness seems to give her value. And for some Egyptians, it seems to really matter. And this is what the director said. She went on to defend Adele James' casting by saying that historians can confirm that it is more likely that Cleopatra looked like Adele James than Elizabeth Taylor ever did. Now, remember, Elizabeth Taylor notably played Cleopatra in an Oscar-winning 1963 movie about the Queen. Now, this director says she doesn't remember the entire country of Egypt demanding that the film starring Elizabeth Taylor be canceled. This story is so shocking and appalling. There were actually 100,000 people who signed a petition that Netflix cancel this series. And both the director and the actress Adele James, and I think even Netflix, had to turn the comments section off of their social media because they were getting bombarded with so many racist and vile comments. Finally, Adele James had to, clap back and say, look, we need to have a conversation with ourselves about colorism and the internalized white supremacy that Hollywood has indoctrinated us with. Now, this is actually a statement by the director, not Adele. Adele said, look, if you don't like the casting, then don't watch the damn show. Well, she didn't say damn show, those are my words, but that's how I'm feeling about this. I am just stunned by this, again, that this entire country would be out front arguing that somehow a Black woman playing Cleopatra is so offensive to them. And then they made this statement. I read a statement by someone from the Egyptian government that this is no offense to Black women. Well, guess what? It really is. It really, really is. And it's just unthinkable, the kind of energy and time that's being put into their protest about Adele James when Elizabeth Taylor played Cleopatra. There were two white women in the running for this role for Cleopatra in this feature as well. And I can remember growing up, everybody we saw on TV was white, from Santa Claus to Jesus. So now all of a sudden a Black woman gets a role as Cleopatra and a whole nation wants to rain down on her, and the internet's gone crazy, lost its mind, all these abusive, horrible statements, even the use of the N-word to the point where Adele James had to turn off her comments on her social media. We got to do better, America. We have to figure out a way to rid ourselves of this internalized white supremacy, because it impacts us in just about everything that we do in this nation. I'm still scratching my head about this controversy that shouldn't be a controversy. And when we should be celebrating this young, talented actress, we are now trying to protect her from vile racist statements. That's happening, y'all, in real time. Never underestimate that racism is real. When we come forward, more of today's trending news right here on KBLA 1580.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Regulators, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for Black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of Black audiences are concerned about the lack of Black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the Black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% Black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black. Your Black. Your Black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest spot. Shot with a rest spot. Shot with a rest spot.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
All right, I am back with my two brilliant contributors. The first person, Gustavo, whose name I totally butchered. Apologies, my friend. Gustavo Arellano is with us. He's a columnist for the Los Angeles Times, and Democratic strategist Chris Scott is here. Welcome back to both of you, and thank you for joining. I want to start off with the great senator from South Carolina, Gustavo. does, these Republican senators who are polling under 5% and some even under 1%, does Senator Tim Scott have a lane to run in this Republican primary for president?
As long as he tries to not be like Trump, absolutely. No one is going to out-Trump Trump. And Tim Scott does not seem like that type of person. But then what do you have to offer to the American people? And specifically, since we're still in a primary mode, what do you offer to Republicans? They're going to take those Republicans away from the cult of Trump or the DeSantis fanboys. Nothing against South Carolina, but South Carolina really doesn't figure in the American imagination the way Florida does or the way Trump does. And already you have another South Carolinian in the mix, and Nikki Haley. So what are you also going to offer that Nikki Haley is not offering? So best of luck to Tim. Best of luck to anyone who is not Donald Trump in that, in that Republican primary, but good luck as well.
Yeah, I know you said you can't try to out-Trump Trump, but seemingly the base is not interested in anyone that is, remotely civil, anyone that's remotely, reasonable on issues like abortion or gun control or any of the issues that are resonating with voters. Chris, what are you thinking about a Tim Scott run for president? Does he really have a shot, or is this just, I don't know, is he performing for a position in the White House, assuming a Republican wins?
Yeah, I just don't see a pathway for Senator Scott here. I think, like Gustavo says, South Carolina isn't really attractive, especially to the Republican base in the grander scheme of things. But again, like, you got to think back to when Trump first ran and how he shredded that Republican primary. I've never seen Tim Scott to really have the audacity and the confidence going forward and a lot of the things that he's speaking about to be able to command the base's attention. So I think it's, get my name out there and let's give it a good try. But I think in Trump's Republican Party still, there's just no way he has a fighting chance here.
Yeah, it's just puzzling to me, Nikki Haley included with someone like Tim Scott, and let's talk about Mike Pence and others who want to be, who are running for president, or at least Mike Pence hasn't announced it yet. But maybe the thinking is, if something happens to Trump, i.e., some kind of a conviction in one of these various legal cases that he's embattled in, or maybe something happens to him, they're going to be there to pick up the pieces. Maybe that's the thinking behind this. I want to talk about this representative from Montana, Gustavo. So we saw these Tennessee Republicans kick out the two Justins because they didn't like basically their comments and their stance and their advocacy around guns. And now we're seeing Montana Republicans kick out a Democrat, a trans Democrat, who's talking about, her opposition to the ban that was passed, a law and signed by the governor regarding hormone treatments and surgical care for transgender minors. So is that going to become, kind of the modus operandi of Republican lawmakers? If you are in a state where the Republicans control the party and they don't like your advocacy, whether it's on guns or hormone treatments or, whatever, they just kick you out of the legislature.
That's always been the Republicans, a party that always cries cancel culture. They're the ultimate cancelers. The party that cries, oh, snowflakes, Democrats and libs are a bunch of snowflakes. They melt faster than the Sierra Nevadas are going to be melting in the next couple of weeks here in California. This is the party of hypocrisy. And look, Democrats do the same thing as well, but they do not assume the mantle of the supposed mantle of freedom that supposedly Reagan and now in their world, Trump does. I mean, again, right now, what we have as Republicans, you don't have many principled Republicans at all, because they are all beholden to Trump, the least principled person ever, the person who says we must attack our enemies, we must destroy them, we must silence them, we must disrespect them. So you're seeing more of these legislatures all across the United States do it, especially where they do have that majority. But you're angering the next generation, is not just more liberal. And so ironically, they say the next generation doesn't want to hear opposing viewpoints. They're more than willing to hear opposing viewpoints, but they better be smart viewpoints. If they're dumb viewpoints or they're dumb actions, then don't be surprised when they start yelling at you and protesting you. They start running for office and then they start beating you.
But can you think of a legislative body, Chris, that a Democratic controlled legislative body that has kicked out a Republican lawmaker because that person opposed them on an issue? Because in Tennessee, it was, using, I guess, the bullhorn because their mics had been turned off. But the fundamental issue was gun control. And in Montana, the fundamental issue is opposition to this ban on surgical treatments. So basically, they had this woman sitting out in the hallway and demanding that she apologize before they would allow her back into the House. I don't know. Is that how Dems operate? I mean, I could think of some at the federal level, Democrats voted out lawmakers, but not because they oppose them on issues.
You just don't see this behavior from Democrats, but the hypocrisy in the Republican Party, we see it over and over again. I mean, that's why they're passing bills like Don't Say Gay in Florida. That's why you see them getting more restrictive bills in Ohio or Texas, where they even limited how much the media can even come in and film their open session. If you say something that they do not like, they're that school bully that can't take getting their feelings hurt, and they're going to shut off their mic, your mic, or they're going to kick you out the session. And that's just where this party is, and I don't see it changing anytime soon.
That's really, really scary, because that means that people go to the polls, they vote for their elected official, and that elected official can get kicked out for standing up for issues that community cares about. So you're not just kicking out that elected official, you are disenfranchising thousands and thousands of voters that went to the polls to vote for this person. Now, obviously, this Montana lawmaker, she's filed an action. ACLU's gotten involved. They're trying to get an injunction against these state lawmakers, but it's really, really hard to just imagine where our democracy goes if opposition on issues. I'm not talking about threatening comments or some of the things like, we've seen Marjorie Taylor Greene do where she's shouting at someone, calling them a liar and, obstructive behavior. But these are just impassioned speeches about the real issues that you want your legislators to be engaged in and engaged around. But yet they pay a price. So it's almost, it must be really scary to be a Democrat in one of these, legislative houses if you can't speak your mind without fear of being kicked out. And that brings me to this story about this Texas guy, shooter, suspect. Chris, here we go again, right?
Hopes and prayers, again. Right? Hopes and prayers.
Thoughts, prayers, hopes, prayer. These people with these AR-15 rifles. I mean, you knock on a neighbor's door and say, "Hey, can you keep the noise down?" And the guy comes back and shoots up your house, a house with 10 people in it, and 5 people are murdered, including a 9-year-old boy. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you have any hope that we are going to, like a state like Texas, do they care about this slaughter?
Well, I think the disheartening point, we know we're going into a major election year, and we know typically nothing gets done in the year leading up to the election because it's all political theater and posturing in hopes that your party gets control again. So I don't think you're going to see anything happen. But again, at this point, this has become trauma porn to the everyday American. I think a lot of folks are getting numb and are becoming disheartened that it's really not going to change. It doesn't matter how many people are on the victim list at this point. It's just a reoccurring thing. It's the reason why European countries are issuing travel warnings to the U.S., which is really, really alarming at this point in our nation's history.
No, that's such an excellent point. And I think you're right. I like the use of the word, trauma porn. We talk about it in the context of Black men being shot by police and, that becoming racial porn, trauma porn. And here we are again. It just doesn't matter if it's 5 people, if it's 10 people, if it's a 9-year-old, it's a 5-year-old. The age doesn't matter. The gender doesn't matter. The circumstances don't matter. It just seems like the way we resolve disputes in this country is by using guns. I mean, we're just getting over the young kid, in Kansas City knocking on the door and getting blasted, shot in the head, literally. The cheerleader getting shot. I mean, there's just so many of these cases where people are shot and in this case killed for no apparent reason whatsoever, other than we have too many doggone guns in this country and we refuse to deal with it. And anybody can walk into a store in some states and buy not just a pistol, but an AR-15 style rifle, and literally within minutes, seconds, can, destroy the lives of so many people. And as you said, we as a country have become so numb to it. When we come forward, more about what's happening as we lead up to, as Chris said, the 2024 election. A lot of Democrats say they're going to fall in line behind Joe Biden, but they're not happy. And they talk about his age as being one of the reasons they're not so happy about supporting him. And that became subject matter of the White House Correspondents' Dinner with Roy Wood, who made a lot of jokes about Joe Biden's age. And Biden followed suit, made some jokes about his own age. But what role is age going to play in the 2024 election? When we come forward, more with today's trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm young, gifted, and black.
KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of Black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of Black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon honoring Black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Connection established. Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Regulators, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for Black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of Black audiences are concerned about the lack of Black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the Black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% Black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black. Your Black. Your Black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation in scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Connection established. Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Regulators, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
We are back, and Gustavo Arellano is here. Chris Scott is here, and we're talking about today's trending news. And over the weekend, I was in D.C. The White House Correspondents' Dinner was all of the buzz. And in case you missed it, you can go online. You can find the 20-minute clip or so of Roy Wood, who was the comedian MC, whose job it was to roast Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Some folks are giving him high remarks. Some are saying, I've seen better. I frankly thought he did an outstanding job. And one of the issues that came up, which was predictable, was the age of Joe Biden. So lots of jokes about Joe Biden taking naps and, being old. And we keep hearing that as Biden has announced his run to become, president yet again in 2024. So I'm thinking, is this issue of age? It keeps coming up, not only with Joe Biden. I'm looking at the story, Dylan Brooks, who's a basketball player, NBA player with the Memphis Grizzlies. He called LeBron James old, and LeBron is 38. Joe Biden is 82 or something. But Dylan Brooks called LeBron old, even though LeBron is playing, at the highest level with guys who are younger than him. But Gustavo, what is this country's obsession with age? And I should just say, while in DC, over the weekend, one of the big parties after the White House dinner was an event with Diana Ross, who is 79 and gave a 1-hour on her feet performance, giving energy of a 30-year-old and saying proudly that she's, on the verge of turning 80 years old. So clearly age for a lot of people is just a number, but we seem obsessed with age in this country.
It's the United States, and the United States has always worshipped the young. I mean, because we still think of ourselves as a quote unquote young country. We're not the decrepit oldies of Europe or the rest of the world. And so because of that, we're always going to favor people who are young. But look, I mean, you talked about Diana. Of course, Diana's Diana. No one could reach her. But I saw James Brown maybe 2 years before he finally retired, and he was still doing it like a 40-some-year-old man. He wasn't James Brown of Live at the Apollo, or even Papa's Got a Brand New Bag or Sex Machine, but he was still bringing it. So going back to Joe and going back to LeBron's going to go until he thinks he can no longer give in. He's very honest with himself. Same thing as Joe. If Joe didn't think that he could run in 24 and still maintain the level of excellence, yes, I said excellence because I am a big Joe Biden fan. That doesn't mean he's perfect. If he didn't think he could give it his all, he wouldn't do it as well. And the fact that he's making fun of himself, that is true, because if he was really sensitive about the issue, then I would be like, uh-oh, let's worry. But Roy roasted him very well. Joe roasted himself very well. And better yet, Joe roasted everyone else for obsessing about his age even better.
Yeah, no, I thought he was excellent. It's so funny, Chris. Before I went to D.C., I was in Minneapolis, and I was at a conference of public administrators, African-American public administrators from all over the country, a bunch of mayors from cities, black mayors of different cities. And one of the mayors, actually St. Louis, Mayor Tashara Jones, first African-American female mayor of St. Louis, my hometown, talked about how much money was flowing into cities and states because of the infrastructure bill. She, in fact, said it's like Halloween candy at Halloween. That's how much money these cities have. And she talked about St. Louis having like $500 million more money because of infrastructure, because of Joe Biden and infrastructure. Let me make it plain. But yet there's still people, big article in the New York Times today, well, there are people who like Joe but still want an alternative. Someone saying he didn't get that student loan debt relief passed. I'm thinking, oh my God, the man did the best he can, is tied up in courts. Why are Democrats? I went home and texted everybody I know. If you have a business, please make sure you know about all this infrastructure money. Yeah. Why is it that Democrats are still running around saying stupid stuff like Joe Biden hasn't done anything? When there is more, the mayors were like, we have not seen this much money from the federal government in years, decades, some ever, because they're just new to office. Why isn't that message resonating when they say stupid stuff like Joe Biden hasn't done anything? He hasn't done.
Well, I think when it comes to Democrats, it's the problem we've been having for a while is that what we do get done, we do not message it very well a lot of times to the everyday person. And so it's not that we didn't get anything done, but the average person doesn't know what you got done or doesn't feel the impact of what you got done. And so I think that's where a lot of the frustration lies. Look, it's easy to point at the student loan stuff, but hey, he did take the first step that nobody's ever attempted, and you can thank Republicans and a really biased Supreme Court for why that's halted right now. The thing is, Joe knows that he's going to get the jokes about his age, and I had this comment in a talk with The Guardian the other day, and that people knew how old Joe Biden was the first time he ran in 2020. And so you shouldn't be surprised. I think it's more so, overall, Americans are ready to start seeing their presidents get younger. And so I think there's a little bit of anticipation on being anxious to turn the page, because where you had Joe Biden, you also had a Pete Buttigieg in the race, and you have his...
But hold on a second, Chris. I'm glad you said that. And I'm glad you raised those names. Pete, Corey, Kamala, Gustavo. We could have had a young president. We didn't have to have Uncle Joe, Grandpa Joe. We could have had 38-year-old Pete. We could have had 50-year-old Corey, 55-year-old Kamala. We had options. So
they were too young. In the American mind, the very people who say we want young people, then they get scared, like the AOCs, like the Petes, like the young, the half Cuban gentleman from Florida, the first gen.
Frost.
There you go. Yeah, Maxwell Frost. Yeah, people see him and are like, oh my God, this is the future. Like the two Justins. People do not want young folks. So then they settle with what is in front of them.
Wait a minute. So Corey and Kamala would definitely, they're not Pete. They're not the Justins. They're middle-aged people. So they seemingly fall right in that perfect category of middle age.
Yeah, but Kamala, she's a black woman, so she was not going to win because this country, misogynoir. Always,
so we want you middle-aged but white. Middle-aged white man.
Yeah, sadly.
Nobody was, oh, no, wait, there was someone that fit that, right? What was the guy from California? Wasn't he middle-aged and white? The wealthy guy. Come on, Gustavo. Ran for
not
president.
Gavin Newsom, although
No, ran for president.
Tom Steyer?
Steyer.
Yeah, Steyer.
He's a billionaire, and California billionaires creep people out, like Elon Musk and all the tech bros.
So something wrong with all these middle-aged white people. Okay, we need to take our medication in this country because I don't know what's going on.
Reality check.
Too old, too young. But you're right, Chris, that we knew how old Biden was, and we know we're not a one-president country.
Mm-hmm.
We know we are a two-president country. You can't get enough done in one term. So even though Joe kind of talked about, do you think there are any issues? Because he kind of talked about being transitional. Now he says, well, I don't want to be transitional. I want to be transformative.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a problem?
No, I think the big thing, I do like what he had in his rollout in saying, let's get the job done, because, the reality is, even if Joe Biden gets reelected, without Congress, he's not going to be able to get the job done that he started. You're not going to see us be able to build back better. And so I do think that is a very strong narrative. The thing is, does he continue to lean in and say, look what we started, and if you give me 4 more years, look at what we can finish?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gustavo, quickly before we take some more news, what's your thinking about that? Do you think that's a convincing message? Let me finish what I started?
Kind of. If you agree with what he's doing, I do. And if you are not freaked out by the possibility of Trump returning, I still think that Biden's best chance to lose if it's anyone other than Trump, because he'll beat Trump. Trump is just too toxic.
Yeah, when we come forward, I want to talk more about that White House Correspondents' Dinner and some of the jokes that were made by Roy Wood, as well as some of the comments made by Joe Biden. Then we're going to talk about the Met Gala that's happening tonight in New York City. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Gotta stay fresh, my House shot with a rest by, shot with a rest by, shot with a rest by.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody. That's right. Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes!
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me, on me, on me, on me, on me, on me.
Get up the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor.
All right, Chris, what is your take on Roy Wood and his performance on Saturday night at that dinner? A lot of folks are talking about the joke. That really wasn't a joke, but his comments about Kamala Harris and coming to her defense and giving some perspective about, people asking, what does the vice president do? How did you think that landed with the audience? And overall, how did you rate Roy?
Overall, I thought Roy was great. I thought it was refreshing. I think we need more of that at the correspondence dinner. I mean, you think about the Obama years, how a lot of those dinners went. It's supposed to be a little bit more lively. And then I do love the defense of Kamala Harris. I think she has gotten a lot more scrutiny because people are asking, where is Kamala in this?
Yeah, I think we're having some problems with Chris.
Term of Joe Biden. So I think I hope we get to see her a little bit more leading up into the election, and especially if he gets elected, see her in a more prominent role, the way that he got to have with Obama in the first place.
Yeah, Gustavo, right after the big announcement and Julie Chavez Rodriguez was announced as the campaign chair, which I was so happy about. I'm sure you had a chance to interact with Julie when she was here working for Kamala in her Senate office. Maybe you've worked with her even when she was in the Obama administration. Very, very competent and I think just perfect for the job. But there were a bunch of articles that came out and some obviously were purposeful. It was a whole campaign around Biden's team pretty much acknowledging that they had not done enough to protect Kamala and her reputation and to help the American people understand what her role is, acknowledging that as a result, she's taken a hit because her poll numbers, some of her poll numbers are worse than Biden's numbers, which, aren't all that great on any given day. But do you think that campaign to try to rehabilitate her stature and to give more of a sense that the Biden team is supportive, do you think that's working? Because a lot of folks feel like Biden is just kind of, threw her out there without a life jacket, like threw her in the ocean, like go, sink or swim on your own.
He's going to need to have a strong vice president next to him, because if not, especially people who do support Kamala are going to be upset at him. And they will, if they see him doing an affront to his vice president, a black woman, people will remember that and they won't be as motivated to go to the polls. Also, Kamala, look, people are counting Kamala out already. No way can she possibly succeed Biden. Maybe she won't even be the vice president. Well, Kamala has done an entire career of being underestimated by the media like ourselves, by voters, by white people specifically, and beating those expectations again and again and again.
But wait a minute, Gustavo, but hold on. I want to talk about, though, Biden. Do you think Biden's team in these first 2 years have done enough to support her, to fight back against all the racism and misogynistic, attacks that she's been under?
I don't think so. I also think it's part of the learning curve of being a vice president. A vice president, with the exception of Cheney, because he was Dark Lord, most vice presidents don't do much. So Kamala, he gave her a bag of garbage and said, all right, deal with it. And she's still here. And she's done as good as she can. I think now Biden's like, all right, sorry, I had, as old guy, sorry I had to do this to you, kid, but now I'm with you. Let's go get him for the next 5 years.
But I guess I'm still grappling, Chris. Why did he have to do that? I mean, I understand vice presidents don't do a lot. They serve at the pleasure of the president. But, it does feel like she was being undermined. Some of those stories talked about some of Biden's team who weren't, very receptive to her and have made it difficult for her.
Yeah, I think the hard part was that there was a lot of discussion when he first got in about him being a one-term president and her immediately succeeding. So I think there was also a little bit trying to balance out, all right, I need you, but also I can't put you too much where you're gathering too much attention. And so I think it took some time, and I'm hoping they've caught their groove and they're running step at this point.
Do you think the campaign of articles that came out after the announcement, do you think they set the right tone? Do you think they resonated? I mean, there was a slew of articles from like Ron Klain and different other former White House administrators saying, she's really our girl. We love her. She's on the team. Blah, they were like cheerleaders for her in a way that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah, I think it's a good start. I think people still, especially American voters, and Kamala does have a very huge following. They're still going to want to see more. It's a start, but let's see you start actually utilizing her more heading into this 24 cycle.
What does that look like, Gustavo? We know what Biden, he had a big portfolio under Obama. Like, what do you think the perfect portfolio? Is it the abortion issue? Is it voting right? I mean, we know she had immigration, which is just a loser for anybody.
Yeah.
But what do you think the right portfolio is? I don't know if abortion is the right issue either, because that's probably tough too.
It's tough, but that's the vote that is getting people out to the ballots. Stopping abortion bans. What was it in Wisconsin? In the Midwest, states in the Midwest, Nebraska, I believe. So I think Kamala is at her best when it is about issues on the domestic front, because she knows that. She was an attorney general in California. She was the district attorney in San Francisco. She was a senator. She knows, especially when it comes to working people and people of color. So expect to see her on the campaign trail all across the United States, more so than now. She's got to still have her foreign things, but I think if Joe keeps her here, that's Kamala's strength. So play up to her strengths. And yeah, I mean, if they continue on that groove, they're going to be unstoppable.
Yeah. So what does that say, Chris, for Gavin Newsom? He was on he just sent out a email. He was on some show on MSNBC talking about how he's confronting DeSantis, and he's really in this personal battle, seems like, with Ron DeSantis, and trying to prove that he can out DeSantis. I don't know what he's doing, but obviously there's no job available in 2024.
Yeah, I really feel like he's positioning himself for 28 to be an alternative to Vice President Harris if she does run. And, the thing is, that type of posture in 4 years early, people have a very short-term memory. They're not going to remember that, and it's not really going to be relevant at that time. So right now, again, I think it's for his own ego and posturing, but it's not going to be relevant.
Yeah, Gustavo, he's going to have a 2-year gap where he's not in office. Nobody's going to remember this. DeSantis is going to term out, thank God. They have 2 two-term limits like we have in California. So if he doesn't become president, even if they change the law, we can keep his job. If they don't change the law, he would be out of that Florida's governorship. But even if they do change it, he's going to be out. So what is, two questions for you, Gustavo. What happens in those 2 years? And then what is Gavin going to do with Dianne Feinstein? Because there was another big article, maybe in your paper, about can this Black woman that he's promised to appoint be a caretaker, or can it be someone like Barbara Lee who's running full stop for the job?
Yeah, the number one, Gavin is going to write a book. It's going to be a bestseller, and he's going to tour the country for 2 years until he finally announces, talking about the California way. That's the easy one. Number two, Gavin, if at the end of everything, it's Dianne Feinstein's choice if she should step down. But if she were to step down, then Gavin should keep his promise, and Gavin should totally pick Barbara Lee, who, full disclosure, did a fundraiser at my wife's restaurant in Orange County, and it was awesome. She was awesome. She was prophetic in opposing the Iraq war. So put her in. And people say, "Oh, that's unfair. It's front runner." Well, look, Karen Bass, she's not going to be senator because she has a job to do in Los Angeles. Shirley Weber's good too.
Yeah, Gustavo, I was about to say, I was in Sacramento recently. The talk in Sac is it's Shirley Weber who is the front runner. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I can see that, but I don't know. I'm more for Barbara than I am for Shirley, and nothing against Shirley. But regardless, Gavin should keep to his promise. If he were to break it, he knows that would destroy his career. Because it is so hypocritical to try to put on the cloak of Blackness for a little bit and then say, no, not anymore. It'd be preposterous.
Yeah, let's hope he does keep that promise. What do you think, Chris, real quickly? You think a governor that makes that promise, does he appoint a caretaker who won't run? Or does he give the job to someone like Barbara Lee, Congresswoman Lee, who is running?
Look, I think it's time for Congresswoman Lee. I'm a huge fan of her. Obviously, the voters will decide, but let's keep in mind, we don't have a Black woman in the Senate, and one that can actually be effective on day one because she already knows a lot of how Congress works. It would be a powerful thing and look really good for him if he is looking at that run in 28.
Yeah, no doubt. Barbara Lee seems to be the Congresswoman of choice. We don't know what will happen with Feinstein. I do hope, though, Gustavo, that Feinstein takes into consideration the gridlock she's creating on that judicial committee, those nominations and the oversight of the Supreme Court. So there's a lot that's riding on her staying in office if she cannot make it to the Senate to vote. So our prayers are with her that she recovers, but boy, she's got to make a decision because we cannot allow us not to take advantage of Biden in those judicial nominations in particular. Thanks, Gustavo. Thank you, Chris. Always a pleasure, my friends, to have both of you. Gustavo Arellano, LA Times columnist. Chris Scott is a Democratic strategist. Brilliant minds helping us break down today's news. When we come forward, it's all about Donald Trump and his latest legal jeopardy. His lawyers say he should get a mistrial. This is the E. Jean Carroll defamation and sexual assault case. One of the nation's leading civil rights attorney will be here to help us break it all down. When we come forward, KBLA Talk 1580.